Welcome to the ATU Library Podcast.
I am Lowell Leibarker.
And I'm Luke Heffley.
Please join us to learn more about the ATU Library and all that it has to offer.
We explore timely topics with library staff members, local authors, musicians, and professionals from Arkansas Tech University, the River Valley, and beyond.
In this episode, we are very fortunate to have a guest host, Matty Klein, who recently received her Bachelor of Fine Arts this spring semester of 2019. Matty interviewed her art teacher, Neal Harrington, a celebrated printmaker, director of the Norman Art Gallery, and a full professor here at the Tech Art Department. Please enjoy.
Today I'm here with Professor Neal Harrington, the printmaking professor at Arkansas Tech.
Thank you for having me, Matty.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Oh, no problem. I mean, it's not like raining cats and dogs or anything. It's like a beautiful sunny day out.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful Russellville. I'm just going to start off with some basic questions. Where are you from? Where were you born?
These are heavy questions, man. I was born in Rapid City, South Dakota, which is right by Mount Rushmore, right in the shadow of Mount Rushmore, 20 minutes away. And I went to a few different colleges. I was not always the success that I present here now. I went to a few different colleges, but I would say I got my degree, my first degree, my BFA, in painting and drawing from the University of South Dakota in Vermillion, South Dakota, which is a small town a lot like this.
Is there any reason that you chose Arkansas Tech to teach at?
They had a one-year replacement position. And so, I went and got my master's as well. So I got an undergraduate degree at University of South Dakota in Vermillion, South Dakota in 98. And I was married already, and just newly married. And my wife and I wanted to go to graduate school. So we applied to maybe 5 or 6 each. Didn't get into any of them. And we were kind of bummed. We're like, well, this sucks. What are we going to do? And one of our professors that we got along with, and he knew we wanted to go, but he knew we hadn't gotten in anywhere. He comes out of his office one day, and he goes to my wife, Tammy, do you still want to go to grad school? And she said, yeah, I do. And he said, I have a friend at Wichita State in Wichita, Kansas, that's looking for someone. And so just based on that, we said, let's go look at it. It wasn't guaranteed. He wanted to meet my wife, and then I'll come along. What else am I doing? Nothing. So I'll go along. So we drove down, and we drove down to Wichita State, and we met the professor, John Boyd, who's now passed, great man. And he, after the tour, said, Tammy, I really want you to go here, and full ride.
Nice.
Good deal, right? And we're like, holy
Nice.
God. And then he looked at me and said, well, what are you going to do? And I swear to God, I said, this is true. I said, I think I might be like a cop or something. And he's like, what? Your wife told me you paint. You got a degree in painting. I said, yeah, that too. But, I thought, what am I going to do with that? I thought I would go into law enforcement or fireman or something. And he said, let's go talk to the painting professor. They're picking people. And I just talked to him yesterday. There's nobody they're real excited about. Maybe they'll take you. And so I met the painting professor, and he said, send in your packet, which is a binder at the time. Now everything's easy. You upload, download, send discs. I had to send a binder with slip sheets and all the printouts, and then slides, 20 slides of my work, 20 slides of paintings, 20 slides of drawings, teaching, or like a philosophy of grad school thesis thing. And I sent that in, and he said, no guarantee. And about a week later, I got home from work, which was a house painter, hard job, 6 to 6 in the morning to 6 at night. And I turned on the answering machine because it was blinking, and it was the painting professor, and he said, you're in, full ride.
Nice.
And so once we got done with graduate school, I had switched into printmaking, and Arkansas Tech, along with a lot of other universities, had positions open, but all the other ones said required 3 years experience teaching outside of graduate school. I didn't have that, but as I told other grad students, no one's going to call me, so I'm just going to apply anyway, which is stupid and a waste of money. But, like, I felt like I was doing something, and that's what's important. And so I was applying to all these jobs that required 3 years of out-of-school experience teaching, and I didn't have that. And then this one came along for Arkansas Tech, and it said a 1-year replacement, like 1 year and you're done. Like, you're replacing this guy who I didn't know if he had quit or if he was fired or anything. It just said you're going to replace, for printmaking, replace this guy, and then it would be done, and, you know, there you go. And I applied, and I got it.
And you've been here for how long?
This is my 18th year.
Wow.
That was 18 years ago. I've been married for 22 years almost. So yeah, I'm old. Suddenly, I was young. You know, when I started, I was 28. And a lot of my students were like 3-4 years younger than me. It's a lot easier now. People don't seem to argue. They look at this and they're like, oh, he knows what he's doing.
So you would
I guess, I don't know. It's a lot easier now. Like, oh, that's Harrington.
He's in art.
He's in art. Just do this. And they're like, okay, cool.
Be
When I was
easy
younger,
on
it's
him.
like, well, why? Just do it. I started wearing a tie and stuff and trying to get respect, you know. It's funny. Now I wouldn't do that. No.
Do you enjoy teaching here? Or?
I really do. You know, like anything, even the best job's a job, but I started work really young because my family had their own business of rental properties, not the best rental properties, and house painting. And so as soon as I could gather trash, I was on trash duty. As soon as I could scrape a house, I was a house scraper. I think it taught, and then my art interest helped me become really good at painting houses, which was funny because I would work as a house painter in college, and, you know, homeowners would come out and chit-chat and bring you a soda or something if it was hot. And they'd talk to you, oh, are you a college student? Yeah. What are you studying? Thinking you're pre-med or something. I'd say painting, and they'd look at you like, painting? Like house painting? Like, no, like art painting. And then they would just back away slowly because they had no idea what to say to you at that point. And so I always found it really funny. But I started working really young, and then I'd held a lot of jobs, man. I've been a cook, like I said, house painter. I've worked construction, roofing, which is the worst job. That's the worst job. The hardest job is being a stay-at-home mom. And I did that because when I did work here, my job was done after a year, and my wife got hired up the road at the University of the Ozarks, and so she was full-time, and I was an adjunct, which means you do the same exact job for like $30,000 less plus no medical. But since she had a full-time job, I could be on hers, and we started having kids because we're like, hey, we can have kids now. And so we started having kids, and I would watch our son all day, which is the hardest job in the world. It's just the hardest job in the world. It's crazy. And I would be so worn out, and then she would come home after teaching all day. We'd high five. I'd go teach my class at night, and she would put our son down, and we did that for about 2 or 3 years. So I'm really close to my son. Not that I'm not close to my daughter, but I mean, I raised him like practically, you know, I made all the dinners, changed all the diapers, everything. And it's the heart, that is, my hat's off. Anybody stays home. But so this is the best job I've ever had. I mean, I really love it, especially compared to, but there's days, I mean.
Yeah.
I like the teaching part, but the longer you're here, you start working on committees and assessment and rubrics and curriculum and other things that just give me a headache, and I got one just saying those words. But I love to teach, yeah.
To talk about your artwork, if you could describe your artwork in a style, what would it be? Because you have a lot of different styles. Like, just sitting in here, you have, like, some kind of man playing a guitar and
another guy playing a guitar.
Another guy playing a guitar in, like, a woodsy scene. And then this really colorful piece with the accordion, I'm guessing?
That's a phonograph.
A phonograph.
Or a gramophone. Referencing, and it also references Hokusai, who is a very famous woodcut artist that did the wave that you've probably seen on posters around Mount Fuji. And never one to not steal from someone great. I did my own interpretation with a gramophone falling in and then different waves. That's called Birth of the Vinyl Venus. Also biting on, the birth of the Venus and things like that. So I like to use humor. I always did. It took me a long time to find what I wanted to do. I mean, serious trouble in grad school because I went to a graduate school where they had no sense of humor. And you've had a few of my classes, and I like to kid around. I mean, hopefully, you see, I'm serious about what I do, but I do like to joke around. There was no joking around in graduate school. And it was a very stifling atmosphere, and I hated it. But I got through it because I thought, what else am I going to do? And my wife would have been mad if I quit. So I threatened quitting every year. And she's like, what are you going to do? Nothing. Get back to work, I guess. So, and then I got done with graduate school and I thought, you want to kind of carve a niche out for yourself. And I didn't do this type of work right away. I did a lot of music-influenced work. And I just was searching, just always making, I don't sit around and wait for, I'm one of the, some people wait to be inspired or try to do things to be inspired. I just kind of work. And I think that comes from, again, I started working really young. And I believe art is, you do something and react. If you sit around waiting to totally conceive it in your head, that's all you're going to do is sit around waiting. And so I've made a lot of bad art. I just don't show that to anybody. I swear to God, people are like, oh, no, yeah. I have. Just like musicians. I've heard, you have to write 100 terrible songs before you write one that's okay. Same thing with painting and printmaking. You probably have to make it, you might not have to make that many if it starts clicking, but I bet you I've made some terrible work. And I look at it and burn that, So I would say my style is just very illustrative. And that can be a dig in the fine art world because they're like, well, you're just an illustrator. And in museums and galleries, they tend to want more open to interpretation. But I feel my work is open to interpretation. You're going to bring your baggage to anything. Whether it's just a line on a canvas, just one line, you're going to be like, oh, that's terrible. And that looks like this. So.
I mean, you've proven that your illustrative style has overcome that in galleries because I've seen your work in galleries and it's really awesome.
Well, thank you. Being in a hard situation in graduate school where there was no humor and there never was going to be humor, because, a lot of people deflect with humor and and that just did not work. And so in a way, I really hated those people, but they made me better because it drove me out of painting because I did illustrative paintings. They didn't like that. And I thought, well, I'm either going to switch into printmaking or quit. And I spoke to my wife's professor and he said, I'd love to have you over here. You work hard. You make stuff. I don't know what their deal is. He said, I was like, awesome. So this is going much better. And I started looking at other famous artists in art history that were illustrative, like Angs, other artists like Rockwell Kent, Lynd Ward, people that would do illustrative work that was still considered fine art. Van Gogh's illustrative, Gauguin's illustrative. Those guys do illustrative type work, and I thought I respond to that, and so I want to do that. And so that's how I kind of came up with what I do. It was pretty organic. It took a while. I mean, I'm 45. I've been doing this a long time, man, and I never took breaks. Even when I had a kid, I'd put him down for a nap. I'd sketch. I was probably hardest on myself then because my production was low because I was just tired. Blue's Clues doesn't inspire a lot of stuff. Blue's Clues and Dora, It's like, man, my brain was like butter at the end of the day. Just you weren't thinking of real high-end stuff those days. So,
besides graduate school and painting, is there any other things that led you to printmaking, like experiences, maybe people?
I was always jealous of the printmakers because, as I tease, Madrinich, who's one of my colleagues, and you've had him, David Madrinich, the professor of painting, good friend of mine, my buddy. I love to tease him. He teases me too. Yeah. But like I always tell him, they sell paintings that monkeys and elephants make. They're not making prints.
Yeah.
He just shakes his head. But because I was jealous of the specific knowledge and all the different things. What's so neat about printmaking, if you get a good image, you can milk that thing. You can do linoleum, monotype, talio, lithograph, collograph, embossment. I mean, there's so many things you can do. Painting and drawing, you're either painting or you're drawing.
Yeah.
Or you're doing both together. And so I really liked that. I was like, man, I wish I knew how to do that stuff. But it seemed like such witchcraft. Like I'd go in there and people were dipping things in acid and doing all these things. I'm like, oh my God, I'll never be able to learn that. And then I had to, like, in a semester. Because I never had really any printmaking as an undergrad. I switched. I had, I guess, one class, but it wasn't the greatest class, and I hated it. And then I had to learn it in one semester in grad school and then turn around and teach it the very next semester while taking classes and making work and working in the summer. And so it was difficult. So my mind was stressful. It was stressful. So I get it when students are like, I'm so stressed. Like, I know. It only gets worse. You either come through it or you don't, you know?
Yeah. Are there any processes that you favor over any other in printmaking, like wood cuts or linoleums?
I would say definitely the relief aspect, and I think that comes from being a father again. You've done intaglio. You got to be in the studio, and it is kind of chemically dangerous, some things, and so I didn't want to have those fumes and things around our children, and my Tammy seemed to be less upset if I left a little bit of mess of linoleum scraps. And I didn't even really carve much wood in the beginning. I did tons of the linoleum stuff, which is very similar to carving wood. But it was stuff when I carve a woodcut or linoleum cut, it's done before I carve it, as you know. I draw it out. I do all the Sharpie. All that's left is carve it. I don't have to think.
Yeah.
I'm not a big thinker. I've already done my thinking. You might make quick little decisions as you're doing it, but it's basically done. And so I could step away, change a diaper. I could step away, start cooking, get a bottle warm. So I think that's how I really got into it. And it paid off because I got better at it. I wasn't always real great at it. Like my first ones, I wouldn't even show people really. I recently found them. They're not real great, you know. But I just kept working at it and looking at people I admired.
Would you say that your wife and your children have inspired you in your printmaking?
They really have, but not through imagery, just through my wife. It's just funny because I'm very fortunate that she's an artist as well because she inspires me. I inspire her. We're always working on something, and I hope my kids see that, and they're, you know, neither one are real into art. My son's definitely not. My daughter is more into art, but like makeup and doing things like that. But, you know, you always hope what you do that your kids will be interested in it. But I come from blue collar people that I never went to a gallery before I was in college. I mean, my art museum was 7-Eleven's comic book rack. It was, and that's why I think my work is very comic book oriented because that's what I admired and that's what I wanted to do. But now I don't think I would want that job. It seems really repetitive. Like you can only do so much if you're working in comics, I think. And it's a great medium, but I just don't want it. I don't want to do it.
Do you ever do any collaborative pieces with your wife or
God, no.
No.
No, I don't. She, it's funny because people ask us that a lot, and we always just joke. Our only collaborative effort's the kids. You know?
Yeah.
It's a lame joke, but it's true. Like, we just both are just too headstrong. We would be like, whatever I did, she'd erase, and whatever she did, I'd erase. So we just do not collaborate. No Christo, Jean-Claude Christo thing going on here.
Is there any advice that you have for new artists or college students?
Man, I give it all the time. I give it every day, and that's you got to just draw or do something. I met a hero of mine who taught at ASU. His name is Evan Lindquist, and he taught at ASU, the printmaker there, for a long time. He's a legend. He's actually the printmaking emeritus of Arkansas, and wonderful man. And I'd never met him, and I thought he's going to be really uptight and stuffy. And I went and took a workshop with him, and he does metal engraving, like in copper, so like relief work, but in metal. I know, I'll stick with wood and linoleum. But he was like, I thought he would be all really uptight about like, keep your tools sharp and do it this way and don't do that and do that. He was like, whatever, if it breaks, just make something. Just make something. If you don't have anything, there's nothing to talk about. And so you got to make something. And so my advice is just keep making things. It'll come around. I mean, if you're making it to have money, if you're making artwork to be famous, good luck. Most people just really don't care. Most just don't care. And I hate to say it that way, but it's true. I've been in this game a long time. And what I say is, I'm going to make them care. Like, I'm going to make you care. Because I'm going to do something so goddamn awesome. You're going to be like, this is fucking cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I make them care. Because what else is there? And also, I care. I make what I like. I make what I like. I don't make stuff for anybody else. All these in here, if no one ever bought them, I mean, these are still in my collection. I'm loaning these here. I like them. I'll hang them up in my house. I like to look at my own work.
Do you have any gallery openings soon or anything that you're going to be in?
A really big project. I'm speaking, never make anything for anyone else. I actually am this summer. I was chosen as one of the 10 artists to carve a 4-foot by 6-foot wood block. And they're going to do an exquisite corpse project where, you know, one butts up to the next one. So you have to start it in a certain place and end it on a certain place of the block. And they're going to line up. And this is out in Portland, Oregon, the Columbia River Gorge project. And we all got assigned a certain section of it. And you can interpret it any way you want. So I'm going to work with the community and do all of that this summer. And in September, I'm also working on some other large wood blocks, 4x4 and some 4x8. Or some 8x4 foot pieces that we're going to print at the Butler Center in Little Rock. And I've invited a couple students like Ashton and Addison are going to do some of that too. And we're going to use a steamroller to print them. You know, it doesn't run on steam. It's like a big roll, you know, industrial roller, right?
Yeah.
And so that'll be cool. So yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is always just make yourself sign up for things. Make yourself have events because then you got to do something.
Do you have any closing remarks about anything?
Well, you've taken a few classes from me. I'm always curious to hear what. Have you learned anything?
Yes, yes, of course.
Well, that's all I need.
I've definitely seen an improvement in not only my artwork, but the way that I develop ideas, I'd guess. And they just seem a lot more. I'm not really sure the word for it, but they just seem more complex and more detailed after taking a printmaking class.
Awesome.
Because you have to think of the value, but in a different way, almost in some kind of like, I'm not really sure the word for it, but the opposite way of making value. Yeah. So.
Well, I hope you've learned something. I mean, you teach for a long time and people leave, and then you hope that you had some kind of impact on their career or life in a positive way. That's something that we're positive. I hope, I try to be, hopefully it's positive, but just you can't, not everybody's going to like you.
Yeah,
so it goes that way. And I just, I hope people get some kind of knowledge and feel like they want to keep making art. So I appreciate you having me on this. Thanks, Matty.
Thank you. Thank you
welcome.
for coming.
You're welcome.
This now concludes this episode of the ATU Library Podcast. Many thanks to Lakin Gentry for composing our theme music and photo editing. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in to next week's program.